This is the first episode of WizArt, a How to Art series, and today I'm going to be talking about how artists see the world, or shifting how you see the world and why it can be helpful. Now, if you're in an interactive mood, you can join me right now. I'm going to doodle out a little jar, a bottle, and a happy little tree. If you'd like to join me, that would be grand. If not, that's fine too. So I'm going to draw a bottle, and I'm not actually trying to draw bottles how they really look. I'm just trying to get a shape that represents a bottle in my brain. So that's the bottle done. I'm going to draw a jar. And I am being purposely vague on these, so if you're going, well, what kind of bottle, what kind of jar? Don't think about what kind, just start drawing a bottle, and then a jar, and then a tree. And I'm actually curious to see how different or how similar our trees are. Out of all of them, I am curious. In the bottle and the jar, there's a reasonable chance that they're quite similar. The tree, though, I'm not entirely certain, and I'm very curious. Now that the doodles are done, and we have a nice new camera angle, I'm going to start the conversation how my teachers started it when I was taking art classes. They would say, learn to see what's there, not what you expect to be there. So let's unpack that a bit. Now, I have in this bag, little bag, a number of bottles and jars. So my doodles of a jar and a bottle and a tree look like this. These are the shapes in my brain that represent a bottle, a jar, and a tree. Now, let's see how many bottles and jars actually match these images. This one? No, kind of. Not too well, though. Got a little jar. Put that back here. Another little one. So far, no matches. A little mason type jar. That one's much closer. Another bottle. Doesn't really look much like it though. Definitely doesn't look like it. I think I have some more in here. Oh, that looks much more like it. That's much more like the jar I drew. I think... there we go. That's... well, no, not quite. Not quite. The top of the jar is different. And there's one or two more. Oh, another bottle. I swear I'm not sponsored. Don't get ad revenue anyway. And the last one. Which, again, doesn't actually look that similar. So this is just a collection of bottles and jars that I have lying around the house. Well, flat, apartment, whatever you want to call it. And none of them really look like the representations I drew when I thought of a generic bottle or jar. Now I would try and bring a tree in, but I don't think my bag's quite big enough for that. So we'll have to deal with what we've got. So circling back to this idea of seeing what's there instead of what we expect to be there, there is an implication in that statement that we don't actually see what's right in front of us. And the thing is, for most of us, that's actually true. Because of how our brains process information, a lot of what we actually see never gets processed. We have selective focus, where our brains basically identify what are the most important elements of the scene in front of us. It could be people, it's often actually people, or it could be this big scary monster, or the door, or whatever is most important in the scene given the context. And all the other details around that tend to get left by the wayside. A lot of visual information is actually discarded. So when we look at a scene, or for an example in art, a still life, we don't always pick up all the details. In fact, we're likely to not pick up most of the details, just because our brain's like, well, what's so important about the pattern on the vase? I mean, you know it's a vase. What's the big deal? And this is the other part of how our brains help us miss what's right in front of our face. Our brains are, for the most part, I mean, this isn't true for all people, but for most people, our brains are focused on identifying what is in front of us. It wants to identify and categorize what we're seeing, so that it can then tell us if there's anything we need to do about it, or how we should be feeling about it. The thing is, the way it does that efficiently is by using visual shorthand or visual stereotypes, such as a generic shape representation of a bottle, or a jar, or a tree. Now, we all know that not all bottles look like the generic version we have in our brains, and the same goes for jars and trees. But the thing is, if you're just looking at a scene, and you're not taking the time to actually observe and see what is in front of you, your brain is using the visual shorthand image to communicate what's going on with the rest of your brain. And that's where the phrase comes from. See what's in front of you, not what you expect to see. My brain thinks of a bottle being this. And for me, when I'm drawing, it's helpful to think of it as not just drawing a bottle. I'm drawing this specific bottle. I'm not trying to identify it. And that's what you have to learn how to do. If you want to shift how you see the world, you have to train your brain to stop trying to identify everything and just observe, see what's actually there. And this is where the advice to break things down into geometric shapes comes in. By looking at something and saying, oh no, that's not a bottle, that's a cylinder with a sphere at the top and then another cylinder on top. You stop thinking of it as a bottle, you stop trying to identify and categorize it. It just becomes shapes. It's one way of basically training your brain, kind of tricking your brain, into stopping that pathway of identify, and instead just seeing. I'm actually going to clean this up real quick. There we go. Much better. So, for many people in creative fields, this can be a very helpful thing to learn to do. To see with your eyes instead of seeing with your brain. And outside of creative fields? Well, I have my own theories, but what do you guys think? I'd love to hear about it. And if I've missed something, or if I've got something wrong, or if you have something to add, please leave a comment below. Make a video and leave a link. And if you have any questions, please leave them below. I will do my utmost to reply in a timely fashion. If you enjoyed this, or thought it was interesting, granted it's probably a bit of a rocky start, but hey, there's room for improvement, right? And since you don't improve unless you try, I will be coming back on the 5th of August with the next episode, and I'm going to be talking about point and line, the first two elements of design. So, if you'd like to, I'd love to see you then. Again, please feel free to leave comments below, and I'll see you next time.